Fantastic. Well, welcome all. Formal welcome. The plan we're going to do is perhaps, well, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so presentation on our achievements through the year. It's going to be one of those key, it's a formal reporting thing for us as a charity, but it's a key moment in the year. It is delayed. It should have happened in April, would you believe? But it's been one of those years, and I'll explain more later. But I will say any delay to this VIP is entirely down to me. I've been working away from home since April and haven't really had a lot of chance to catch up with friends, family or anything. So it is overdue, but hopefully it'll be worth the wait. It's a little bit of a celebration too. If you got the invite, it said bring something warming to celebrate. I've got myself a little whiskey, but I won't be drinking too much till I've finished, and a mince pie, because not only is it Christmas, our charity is actually a year old now. So the Carp Trust has been evolving over about 8 or 9 years, but as a formal charity, we were registered on the 5th of November 2021, so we're now a year old. So it's a little bit of a happy birthday celebration as well as a happy Christmas. And I think what I'll phrase it as is what a year. Highs, lows, and pretty much everything in between. It's been a challenging one for us personally as trustees, and we'll come on to that as well. But the main thing to take away is we have met all of our charitable objectives. And so we're in a good place. I'm very pleased by that as well. Right, quickly. There's 2 people that I had hoped would be here but have sent their apologies in advance. The first is Nigel Evans. And Nigel is a manifestation of everything that's amazed me this year in our members and our supporters, because as you know, we have the VIPs, just as yourselves, who have either supported us financially, morally, professionally. Nigel was one of the people who gave us a significant donation to get us started, and then almost immediately after joined us as a member as well. So for people to donate and then give an annual membership was super humbling for us, and we just want to formally say thank you to people like Nigel who did that. The second person is Peter Whipp, who really has gone above and beyond this year to keep our conservation activities going, and as you will find out, is our I don't know if Peter Shilton's the right terminology. I'm not a football fan, but sort of Golden Gloves who did the save of the century. That's Pete. So I did want to say thanks to both of those guys. But as you were saying, the Carp Trust is a registered charity, and we've met all of our obligations. And those obligations to the Charity Commission are that we promote for the benefit of the public the conservation and protection of the oldest strains of carp in the UK, and we advance the education of the public on the conservation and protection of the importance of the oldest carp strains. Okay, and out of interest of those 2, you'll notice that to be a registered charity, it fundamentally has to benefit the public, which might seem a little bit counterintuitive for a conservation organisation. So there's nothing in our objectives that says we will actually conserve carp. Obviously, we do. That is our intention, but formally for the Charity Commission, that's not on there. We choose to do hands-on conservation work to fulfil those 2 objectives, essentially to inspire people to do the same or to appreciate wild carp or heritage strains of carp even more. So we're leading by example, and we'll share successes, failures, everything in between to inspire people to follow in our footsteps. But we've met all of these key objectives principally through the online presence that we have. So the website, that's the main hub for our activities. Huge thank you to Andy and his team for building us a hell of a website. Mostly through, or almost exclusively through free volunteer donated time. I wouldn't even like to begin to estimate the amount of money that we'd have had to have spent to have achieved that. But the website has now, it has more than 80 blogs on it, and essentially that is our news feed. And I think we've had about 3,500 unique visitors to the site since it went live, or sorry, in the past year. So it's doing what we hope it to do. It's waving the flag, it's putting the message out there. We've also got our social media footprint. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And across those, I think we've got about 1,500 followers. Personally, I'm excited to see how many of those will be converted into members or sponsors or donating to us, because that will help us no end. We've also been doing or continuing our work with the press and various platforms, and Steve Murgatroyd's to be congratulated for the work that he's been doing with Pete Tyjas at Fly Culture. There's a great road trip that he and Dave have done, and definitely encourage people to listen into that. Pete and myself have done Steve and myself have done articles. Steve did one in Fly Culture itself. I got one in the Fly Fishers Journal last year, which then Close But No Cigar, runner-up, whatever we call it, in the Peter Lapsley Award, which I was proud about, but again, it gave us a bit more publicity for our charity. So that was great. And all of that really is great, but it's not so tangible as actually being there face to face and having a real human presence. So we started our exhibition activity in April. We went to the Redditch Tackle Fair, where we signed up a few members, but it was mostly about saying, we're here, we're real, we're tangible, come and talk to us, come and meet us. That generated not just awareness and promotion, but also some core funding that helped us to further our operations. And I think in the reach around about £2,000 in donations or memberships, and then about another £1,000 the trustees put their hand in their pocket to further the activities. And that has enabled us to cover all of our costs. So year one in any business, breaking even's a good thing. We've done that. We've covered our costs, and those costs have mostly gone to the lease and the maintenance of Cowslip Pool, our first conservation water, the hosting for the website. I should have said when we mentioned the website, actually, recently it's just gone live, is the shop element of that. So if you haven't been and seen the things there for Christmas presents or whichever, please do and point people that way. It does help to generate funds. And we've also got the opportunity not only to donate on there, but to join as a member as well. But the funds have helped to support the ongoing maintenance of that. We've got our, we've paid for some promotional leaflets, which we give out at shows, but those are available to others as well if you want to help spread the word. We've had 2 batches of pin badges produced now, always limited edition. The blue one you see in there is the current members badge. There was a maroon one that went before it, which was a collector's one for the first 100 supporters. Car sticker as well, given out to members. And also, imminently, is our new journal. And that will be going to print in January. So you can tell what I'm going to be doing over Christmas. But the funds that we've had will cover us for the print and distribution of that as well. So thank you to anyone and everyone who's supported and given some funds to help us achieve this. And personally, for us to achieve all this in the first year of operation, absolutely delighted. The reality of it is, we're looking at a couple of £3,000. Needs to be 10 times that for us to accelerate what we want to do. And particularly when we start looking at the conservation of fish, that is an activity that has a cost of fuel and netting and other stock ponds, etc., etc., and things grow exponentially. So yes, we've broken even and we built a lovely platform, but we do need to grow it through more fundraising to allow us to do what we intend to do. The learnings in this is that it's a lot of work, guys, a lot of effort, and it's a different ask of people to run a charity as it is to do things on a voluntary basis amongst friends, just on a sort of social interest basis. Charity is a different beast. It requires a different time commitment, level of professionalism, and in many instances, sacrifice to keep things running. So a huge thank you to the trustees and all involved and ambassadors for giving up their time freely to help us achieve what we've achieved. But it's not been without cost, I will say. The trustees probably wouldn't want me to say it, but every single one of us is either nursing a close loved one or facing a similar diagnosis ourselves, or through potentially life-threatening illnesses. And that alone has had a big impact in the amount of time that we can give or have been able to give to the charity. Hence why we've been a bit quiet in the second half of this year, but not to the extent that it's ceased activity. We're still doing what we're doing. That said, we have lost some trustees. So the people you can see here are the initial 8 trustees of the Wild Carp Trust. Very sadly, we've lost 3. Matt Tanner, one of our founders, is not well and has resigned. He's still very much part of our group. He's one of our founders, still a VIP, but can't give the time that he would want to give to it. Similarly to Matthew Neal, who was our treasurer. Matt's also not well, so has resigned. And then Tony Prothero, who was our membership secretary, has elected to resign. And then Stu Harris, also one of our founders, he's on extended leave, I think we call it. He's nursing a close loved one as well, but leave of duty. And that leaves us with 4 people. And it's a lot of work for 4. And so you'll see coming out in the new year, when the journal comes out, a request for additional support. And what we're going to do is put in place a committee to support the trustees, covering the key areas, everything from memberships, fundraising, treasurer, etc. And then volunteers to help us with the conservation activity, the egg collection, the fry collection, any nettings, any looking after conservation pools, that sort of stuff. So growth for next year, but I do want to just say a thank you to Matthew, Matt and Tony for all the fantastic work that you've done to date, and you will be missed, but we're still here and you can still benefit from everything that we're doing. Okay. So on that front, I will say it's been a bit of a tough year personally to do all this on top of other stuff, but we love what we do. Hugely passionate about Wild Carp and the Wild Carp Trust, and we are doing everything that we can and ramping up more and more into 2023. The heaviest lifting, however, that we've done this year involves these little fellas. So you remember at the VIP meeting last year, where we told the story of how we collected the eggs, we grew them to fry, and under the watchful eye of Ben, our fish farmer consultant, was growing those on. But 2022 was a tough year for fish farmers. You may have seen in the press, 2 of the UK's largest fish farms lost hundreds of thousands of carp, pounds worth of carp, because of oxygen crashes due to the hot weather. I think it was a joint hottest summer on record. And we're no different, actually, on a considerably smaller but no less consequential scale. We had a tough time with these little fish. And we found that we're growing them in tanks, and we found that they were very susceptible to temperature fluctuation. And we started off with about 60, 70 fish, and they started to keel over due to the temperature fluctuations. And then we got to sort of late spring, early summer, and we got 13 left. It was these little fellas, looking quite healthy, quite nice. But the numbers were going down, and down to 13, and it was sort of unlucky for some, hope not, but it was unlucky for us. We had a phone call on the Monday from Ben, extremely distraught. He'd lost tens of thousands of fish over the weekend because of a pump had failed, and the fish didn't get their oxygen. And amongst those were our fish. So as you can imagine, we were genuinely distraught, actually feeling a lot for Ben, because his losses were considerably more than ours. So absolutely no hard feelings at all. These things happen. But we decided that, okay, we're learning here. Let's respond and do what we need to do. Whilst knowing, I think, in our hearts that breeding fish or conserving fish, it's kind of a numbers game. The more you start out with, the greater your chances of success. So starting with 60 was always going to be a tall order. But the more we can get, the more our likelihood of success would be. So what did we do? I'd been out and bought a pickup truck. I went and bought a huge tank to go on the back of it, and two smaller fry transport tubs. Pete Whip went and bought about a dozen more or 2 dozen more crayfish traps to collect more fry. He also bought that floating net. It's about 5 foot deep, that thing, to put fry in, or minnows in, whichever. And he and I went up to Pantyclin again. We spent about 9 days there during the year, trying to get fry, and without a lot of success, or any success, I will say. We probably caught about 70 million minnows, something like that, but it was tough going. The water there this year was very low. It was a 4 foot-ish lower than normal, and most of the carp that we saw were out in the middle, and we figured that some of the fry might be there as well. The margins were just minnow soup, and so our crayfish traps, which had 3 or 4 metre long cords on them, probably were too close into the bank. But we spent dawn till dusk there for 9 days, trying to get some fry to bolster our numbers, and it was tough going. That's me in July, when the rest of the UK was having the second hottest summer going. I was up there with Pete in horrendously cold wind and horizontal rain, tucked under my ground sheet, desperately trying to stay warm while these crayfish traps were out there. And it was slightly despairing, because not only was the lake level low, our mood was starting to get low as well, especially when we turned up the one day and the lake margins were completely covered in froth and foam. You can see a little bit of it there. That was probably, that the froth there, when it was at its worst, would have been about a foot high and about 4 foot deep, and very, very oily looking. Don't know what it was. I did try and taste it, and it burnt my lips and tongue, something horrible. But there was some sort of pollution incident in the lake, which made us think time was against us, and all we could keep catching was millions and millions and millions of these minnows. And we're catching them, putting them in that big trap of Pete's, keeping going, checking them every 20 minutes. And those crayfish traps were full every 20 minutes of minnows. And we didn't get a single carp, not one. And again, we thought maybe they're further out there, or simply they're not going to get a chance to get to this stuff because the minnows are getting there first. So you could have thought that we were out of luck, but there was a saving grace in this fella here. Peter Whip, one of our trustees what he had done off his own back extremely brilliantly the year before. So if we go back to 2021, when we collected the eggs, Pete continued to visit the lake on a regular basis, every few weeks, putting out crayfish traps, trying to catch fry. And he managed to catch 4, would you believe? Against all those millions of minnows, he caught 4 little carp fry, which under Ben's guidance, he put into a tank in his home and has successfully, semi-successfully reared them. There was one amongst them that was a greedy old so-and-so that swelled up like a football and then went belly up. I think it just ate itself to death, of those ones. But he grew them on, and now we've got 3. So we still have 3 little wild carp. It's these little fish here. And Pete sent me a photo of them this afternoon. And there they are. They're looking rather beautiful, rather golden. I couldn't comment on the size or shape or whatever. They're about 3 inches long. Obviously, they would be bigger if they were in a pond, but in a tank, they grow as fast as they're fed. But those are our 3 little beautiful wild carp. We've deliberately not named them, but we might put it out for the vote or nominations at some point. So where does that leave us is the question that the trustees have been asking. And what does that mean for 2023? So we are back, we are up for this, and we are going to be structured in resuming what we started and also learning from what we've done. And the trustees and I are going to meet in January to put in place the plan for the year, which again will resume with pancycling, with egg collection and fry collection. We've also got 2 other waters that we're in discussions with the owners about potentially conserving their stocks as well. And we've identified 3 other lakes, 2 which are up in the Welsh Mountains again, which have wildies that may be possible for us to conserve or potentially manage those waters to keep the wildies safe in their home habitats. But the learning really is when we set out to do this, it was about hearts and minds, getting people to value wildies, ensuring that people don't see them as runtish fish to get rid of, or potentially stock their water with king carp. It was about making people care about wildies, and that's what we're doing well. The whole breeding of fish is a different beast in itself. We didn't really set out to be fish farmers. We wanted to be fish conservationists, and that takes time, especially when you take an ARC project approach of taking little fryer eggs and allowing them to grow over many years. And people like updates as well. So having some of these fish to hand in a tank, for example, for regular photos is going to be key so people can track the growths. But to get to a scale where we can really conserve things on mass or on a national scale, whichever we call it, it's about how quickly can we get brood stock. So we've got offers for conservation pools, we've got other source pools, we've got a fish farmer, we've got stock ponds, albeit limited number, and all of that requires fish to go in them. And doing it in a way where you're waiting for little eggs to grow up to maturity can take years. Really, the quicker we can get adult brood free fish or access to them, either to strip the eggs direct, and then you've got a bowl full of hundreds of thousands of eggs, or actually controlling or looking after a water with some of these adult fish in, and then taking their fries they're spawned naturally. I think that's the way to really accelerate things. And so not only will we be doing what we've done in the past with the ARC project view, we will be asking permission or exploring options for us to get access to mature brood fish, so that we can really accelerate what we're doing. We're also going to be more visible. So again, doing more in terms of magazine articles, doing more on the podcast and the YouTube front. And we are going to be at events. We've just confirmed that we've just booked for the British Fly Fair International. So we will be there. We'll be alongside Dave on his stand as well. So we're going to have a good old time there, but mostly about being there, talking to people and making them realise how important these fish are. But that's a lot of work over a year. There's a here and now task, which is this thing, which is our journal, which we had a vision to do all along. I'm delighted that it's coming together brilliantly, and many people are on this call are contributing to it. It's going to be approximately 100 pages, and it will be essentially like a mini paperback book, full colour throughout, with some nice content. And the content will be a mixture of the formal charity stuff, some of our story to date, the story of the fish and the conservation activities we've done. There's some key bits on fishing, and surprisingly, there's more on fly fishing for wildies than there is on coarse fishing, but it will all be there. We've also got some international representation as well, and we've got indications of what we're going to be doing next year. You'll also see on the right there, we're going to list out our vacancies for that committee and the volunteers, and we'll be putting that out on social media as well, so people can volunteer to help us. So that's going to be by Christmas, is pulling that together. I think it's going to go to print probably just in the new year, so we'll probably land end of January. I'd hope for it to be in December, so it'd be a Christmas read, but like I said, I'm only just back from my work travels, so getting into the editor's chair, as it were, from now. And just a little tip or observation for you. You'll see on that picture there's like a Hessian thing on the back. Rather a nice touch, I thought, was that is the Hessian that was the spawning substrates, or the cacabans, is it, that Peter Whip cut and put up in Pantyclin to try and get those eggs last year. So that is one of the spawning substrates right from our origins. So a nice touch, I thought. So it's a nice bit of provenance. But that's my formal update, guys. Again, started with and will end with a thank you, huge thank you, and a little photo of these beautiful 3 fish that are keeping our hopes and dreams alive to inspire us to do more of it next year.